Hey guys, it's Kels back at it again with another video, another Friday night live. You guys know that each and every Friday night I promised I would come on live and show my face. So here I go, back at it again, showing our face. You guys know the deal. Come on in, let me know where you are watching from and what you are sipping on. We'll do the topic reveal. We'll get into what you guys want to talk about for the week, what you guys selected, and yeah, we'll make it do what it do. Tonight I am sipping on a little bit of iced tea and a little splash, a little something in there. But that's it for tonight. Nothing too heavy, nothing too crazy as we are going into Memorial Day weekend. We're starting it off easy and smooth. So you guys let me know what you're sipping on, where you're watching from. Drop it in the comments and let me know if we're coming in clear. I always want to check the feed because we're broadcasting a little bit differently the last couple of lives since we got on to week 20. So I just want to make sure that y'all are seeing me, hearing me clearly, and everything is looking good. Let me check over here on the let me see if I can check over here on my channel to make sure that you guys are seeing us before we get into the things, before we make it do what it do, baby. How are you guys doing? Let me know in the comments. Oh, here we go. Let me see. Let me see if the feed is coming in good. And that way I can make sure to see what comments you guys have. And if you are catching us live, you know I always appreciate the love, and always fun to have some folks to kick it with us live. But if you are part of the replay gang, drop this emoji in the chat. You know, replay gang is strong around here. So even if you're not catching us live, even if you're catching us on the replay, it is still all love. Still let me know your thoughts about tonight's topic, how your week went, from all the code switching and the decompressing that we're doing. From the work that we do all week. Still drop your comments in the chat or in the comment section below, whether you're catching us live or whether you're a part of Replay Gang. I see Ruby M in the building, coming in clear from ATL, sipping on some iced chamomile tea. Appreciate it so much. Rubes is always in the building. I did get some messages from some of our regulars saying that they're not going to be able to make it tonight, but that's okay because people have been riding with us. This is week 22. 22 weeks consistent going live on YouTube, decompressing from the week and all the code switching, hanging out with the collective. And yeah, so you guys do message me sometimes directly on Instagram or on YouTube and let me know, oh, I'm not going to be able to make it tonight, or I am going to be able to make it tonight. So yeah, those of you who can make it, I appreciate you guys so much. Rubes is giving me compliments on the hair. I did do some self-care today, just because this week was really rough for me. It was a rough week. I feel like it was a rough week for a lot of us, at least those of us who consider ourselves as empaths, those of us who are not so empathetic maybe and are kind of like tuned out to the traumatic occurrences that happen all the time, may not have felt any, great way this week. But I was struggling this week with all the just the shootings and the state of life here in the United States. But before we get into that, let's cheers. Let's do our regular cheers. Tonight, we are going to cheers to keeping our heads up, even in the midst of dark or trying times. How to keep optimistic, how to keep focused, how to not get too pulled into the trauma and the darkness, if we can help it, when things are not going as the most ideal. So cheers to that strength, to that fortitude, to that tenacity, and to that clarity, and to that love in our hearts as we try to keep ourselves together even when things are not going that well. And so even this week, if you were not so concerned with what was happening in the news, sometimes things are going well in our own personal lives and sometimes they're not going so well. So for me this week, it was not one of the most positive weeks. So I felt like it was only fitting to talk about how you navigate this thing, even when things are not going as well as you would hope them to go. And I feel like even if you're not experiencing that this week, sometime in your life you might experience that. So here's to be able to navigate, to keep our head and our heart in the game, regardless of if things are going to the ideal or if things are a little bit rough, like they get sometimes in this whole adulting thing that we're all navigating together. So here's to that. Cheers. Clink, 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 clink. Yes, it's Friday, it's Memorial Day weekend, it's a long weekend. I actually had, let me take a sip first before I start ranting. Oh, look at me. Dribbling, just dribbling. Today I had today off from the 9 to 5. I also have Monday off from the 9 to 5, so it's a little bit of a long weekend for me. I'm so excited about that. I could really use some time off, work on my studio. You guys can see it's still half done. If you follow me on TikTok, you can see some of the behind the scenes footage of me trying to get the studio off the ground. I got a lot of equipment, a lot of things that I'm really excited to pull into the live. So you guys will see us little by little stepping up the production quality on our lives. And yeah, just really excited to put some effort into that and to keep connecting with you guys each and every Friday night, 7 p.m. per the usual. Yeah. So Rubes is, oh, Rubes is sending love. You keep me going, always clink, clink, clink. Cheers. Cheers, love. Cheers to that. Cheers to Memorial Day weekend, to the long weekend where we'll hopefully get some sun, maybe some pool time, some relaxation. Yeah? Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So, you guys know, first things first, you can see by the subject line, keeping your head and heart in the game, even in hard times. That is tonight's topic. That's what you guys voted for. You guys know every Thursday night I drop 4 topic options. I do a topic drop on Instagram and a topic drop on YouTube community tab. 4 topic options. You get to vote about what your number one issue concern is or what you want to talk about that week. And then on Friday night, we get into the things, right? So at the top of the broadcast, we look at the options and I tell you guys how you guys voted. So let me hop on over to, I'm going to hop on over to Instagram and let you guys know how you voted over on Instagram. And then we'll hop on YouTube, let you guys know the breakdown of how you voted on, on YouTube. And then we'll go from there. All right. So just in case, if ever you want to know how to vote, you can see that I always drop on my stories 4 topic options. So that's how you get to vote each Thursday night. We drop those topic options and then we get into the things on Friday nights. Yeah. So this week, the topics were a little bit, having to do with how to overcome and how to just deal with life as it comes when it doesn't deal you the best cards, right? Because not all the time life deals you, the perfect, spread. Sometimes some wrenches get thrown in the mix and we have to learn how to deal with that too, right? So the topic options for this week were number 1 was how to be optimistic in and through dark times. And on Instagram, that got 0% of the vote. Y'all don't want to talk about that. The number 2 option was how to keep your head and heart in the game. And that got 56% of the vote on Instagram. And that was our number 1 on Instagram. And then the third option was why empaths are not okay right now, and that's okay. And that got 11% of the vote. And then the fourth option was why change always requires a sacrifice. And that came in at 33% of the vote. And all of these topics have to do with the whole situation of the massacre in the elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. And that really hit me hard. I don't have any kids, but I definitely have a lot of children, a lot of, youthful energy around me when it comes to my nephews and my besties' children. And so to put myself in the shoes of those families in Texas was very easy for me to do. And it was a very tough pill to swallow to try to wrap my mind around that level of trauma and just unbelievable state we have to live in right now. So you can see all the topics this week have to do with dark times and how to pick yourself back up, how to be optimistic, how to keep your head and your heart in the game. Why, if you're an empath, it may be a difficult time for you right now, and that's okay. And why these kind of changes that, it seems like we're navigating some sort of change or shift right now. So it's kind of like why sacrifice is always required when you're in these big, huge shifts. And so that one only came in at 33% of the vote. So we'll have to talk about that one another time. But your number one on Instagram was how to keep your head and your heart in the game. Okay. So let's hop on over to YouTube, and I'll let you guys know the voting breakdown on what y'all wanted to talk about on YouTube as well. But in the meantime, you guys let me know, how has this week been for you? What has been your sense? Have you been kind of sucked into the news cycle, hearing about, the shooting in Buffalo, I believe New York last week, and then where they killed 10. This white supremacist drove 3 hours to the black side of town to go and shoot up a supermarket, and ended up killing 10 black people, just for shits and giggles. And that was last week, or like 2 weeks ago. And then last week or a few days ago, another psychopath in Texas shot his own grandmother, and then shot up an elementary school and a classroom full of fourth graders. So those two stories, normally I don't watch the news. I actually don't watch the news at all, because I feel like sometimes the news is a bit into fear mongering quite a bit. And I just don't like to operate from a place of fear. As much as I can not do that, I try not to do that. And so I don't usually pay attention to the news, but those two stories just really like reached through they really reached through the screen, through my phone, through every orifice that can communicate, reached through and caught my attention. And it was just like such a struggle all week to go into office and to do this work that sometimes seems so inconsequential. Really, inconsequential, when compared to something like these massacres that we are forced to just watch and, cross our fingers that our political representatives will help us do something to solve these issues. I see a lot of people saying they're voting, they voted, vote, vote, vote. And for some reason, I cannot muster one iota of energy to vote for any of these. What's a word that feels like fitting? Hyenas that are in political office. And normally I'm not like that at all. I'm normally very politically attuned and adept and aware and into it. But for some reason, I just feel like I'm putting my faith into that I should be putting my faith elsewhere. So I know a lot of people are voting this week and saying you should vote, vote, vote. And I'm just like, I just don't have there's nothing that's making me want to do that anymore. And that's really, really odd for me. And so I know when I get to that place, I know that it's serious. Like things are serious when I don't have the energy to exercise something that I'm usually so passionate about. So I'm struggling this week, and yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more when we get into the thick of the topic. But let's look at what you guys voted on YouTube. Rubes is saying that it's definitely so tough. I'm grateful for these topics and for each blessing in life. Yeah, agreed. Take a sip. All right. So let's look at how you guys voted on YouTube. So same 4 topics. How to stay optimistic in and through dark times. That one on YouTube, on the community tab here on YouTube. And you can see it here. I don't know if you can see that. I put the topics there on the community tab, and you can see the numbers of what everyone voted. And so the number 1 is how to stay optimistic in and through dark times, 56% of the vote. Number 2 option was how to keep your head and heart in the game, 22% of the vote here on YouTube. And then the third options, why empaths are not okay right now, and that's okay. That came in at 0% of the vote on YouTube. And then the fourth option, why change always requires a sacrifice, 22% of the vote on here on YouTube, right? So our number one on YouTube was how to stay optimistic in and through dark times. And our number one on Instagram was how to keep your head and heart in the game. So I decided to mix those two, and that's why you have tonight's topic, keeping your head and heart in the game, even in hard times. That's how we got up with tonight's topic, guys. All right, so let's take another sip. Keep the throat chakra lubricated as we do. You know what I mean? And then again, if you're a part of the replay, gang, drop this emoji in the chat. Let me know how your week has gone in the comments. You know I reply to each and every one. So definitely do not be afraid to chime in as we get into the thick of the thick, seeing 555 on the time. So if you're into numerology, that's the energy of tonight. And that is not my favorite energy, to be honest with you. 555 energy is not my fave, but it is what it is. And I think that's one of the main things that, you know, when we're thinking about keeping your head and your heart in the game, even through hard times, I think one of the main things that we have to think about is that sometimes it is what it is. And there's certain things that you have no control over. And you know, there's always this prayer, this saying is like, God, give us the wisdom to, you know, to accept the things we cannot change, and the difference to know the smarts to know the difference between, like, to accept certain things and the things that we can change, and change the things we can, and know the difference between. I think that's the first thing that we have to kind of think about sometimes when we get into these dark times and these situations. It's like, okay, what do I actually have control over, and what do I not have control over? And don't mix up the two, because you don't want to necessarily sink your energy into something that you have absolutely no control over, and not pay attention to the pieces of the puzzle that you do have control over. And so while we may not have control over, you know, what some man decides to do, you know, shoot up place. And let me pause here. Let me just say one thing. I have to do a little bit of a rant before we get into the thick of the topics, because I do want to point out that whenever we see these mass shootings, it is always some man with a gun. And I think we are always talking about, we're trying to get into the point where we realize that, you know, these killing machines are war guns, and they're not necessarily what the founding fathers were talking about when they said the right to bear arms, and they probably should be banned. But it always becomes this political issue instead of a morality issue, instead of what is morally just and right for the sanctity of life and the safety of citizens of the United States. And so you find certain political parties talking about the sanctity of life when it relates to colonizing a woman's body and having dominion over somebody else's body in terms of abortion. But when it becomes to the sanctity of life in terms of, we probably shouldn't have AR-15s that spit out 35 bullets a minute in the hands of 18-year-olds. You know, when we talk about the sanctity of life in there, it seems to be, you know, too touchy of a subject for anybody to be on one side of on the right side of the fence for. So that's always a little bit of an issue with me. Second thing is that I always notice that these mass killings are always men. And I haven't heard anybody really bring this up, but I think we have a major mental health issue as it relates to the men in this country. There once was a time where men's role were very clearly to provide and protect, particularly for women and children. And instead of men doing that providing and protecting, there are some that are doing it, but whenever you see these instances, it's always men shooting and killing the place. And then you have political men justifying us the right to bear arms. And meanwhile, in this most recent instance, we have 19 dead fourth graders and their 2 teachers. So all the children and the women are dead, 17 are still in the hospital trying to recover, including his grandmother, and all the men, the shooter and the political figures and the police officers, are sitting there trying to dissect what happened. When the F do women and children actually get protected in this situation of, you have these male killers, and then you have these male political figures, and then you have these male law enforcement officers, all, talking and doing what they feel like doing. Children are dead, teachers, women are dead. It's a very disheartening situation. And, that's the most recent one. The one prior to that was, oh, this white supremacist man decided to drive to the black side of town to kill all these black people. So if you can imagine being a black woman or a black child, how the last 2 weeks in America have felt. And just recently, let's not take into account for the last decade or two. So I think the men in this country probably should really take a long, hard look at themselves in the mirror and figure out if they are playing the role that probably they were sent here to do. Now, maybe that's a wrong way to look at it. Maybe men are not here to provide and protect, but in the past that was kind of their role, and I think it's failing at this point. So in a lot of people's eyes, especially when it comes to what we're seeing on the news. And so, not pointing fingers, but I just haven't seen anybody point out that these mass killers are always, these gun wielding, psychopaths are all men. What's going on? What's going on? So, we might need to look at that and really look at the mental health crisis and the gun epidemic and killing situation that we have going on in the United States right now. It's really sick. And they always turn it into a political issue, but it's not. When anyone wants to not make a morally right decision on anything, they turn it into a political issue. When you're talking about somebody going up to a schoolyard and killing children, that's not a political issue. When you see somebody going into the black side of town, into a supermarket and killing a bunch of people, it's not a political issue. And whenever you turned it into a political issue, it gives it license to not be taken as a morally corrupt situation that we're having in the country right now, and we've been having. So, it could, going back to tonight's topic, it could be really disheartening to try to stay optimistic and keep your head and heart in the game when you realize that the people that you're supposed to be voting for, who are obliged, have taken a vow to be public leaders and to have this public safety at the forefront of what they do, when you realize that voting for them, any one of them, is inconsequential, and that you're still on the chopping block, especially if you're a child, a woman, or a black person. And imagine if you were all three, you really start to realize that, every man for himself. So I'm finding it very difficult to vote for any one of these hyenas, or wolves in sheep's clothing, because I just don't think that any of them are worth their weight. So as you can see, I'm having a hard time being optimistic this week, and I think that's fine, because not all the time is this false optimism. Sometimes the truth of the matter is that things suck, and you still have to figure out a way to look for the glimmer, of something to hold on to keep you going, even when things genuinely suck. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that, oh, it's not good right now. Like, you don't have to be optimistic by sticking your head in the sand and pretending like things are good. No, they suck, but you still have to find a way to keep your head up. You still have to find a way to find some purpose in it. You still have to find a way to, keep going, even if it's to go from grief and fear to anger. And a lot of times I find myself doing that. So, if I feel hopeless, or if I feel like confused by this life, that earth, and how ghetto earth is, you know what I mean? And like, the people God sent down here to provide and protect are down here shooting up the place and saying it's politics. Like, whenever I notice that that's what's happening, I don't necessarily have to stick my head in the sand. I can get angry about it. I could get angry about it. I could say, you know what I mean? I don't know, I don't know, you, you know, what can how do I say that? So, you can kind of get angry about it too, and use that anger as momentum to do something, whether that is to, decide that no gunman, no Freddy Krueger, no man walking into no grocery store, no man coming up to no schoolhouse. No man is going to let me cower and tremble and stay locked up into my house. I was sent here to do something and to carry out some sort of mission. And by hook or by crook, that mission will be done. He would have to kill me to stop me from executing the mission that I was sent here to do. And that him thinking that his mission on this earth, whatever, was to instill fear in other people, will stop other people from doing their mission. How about no? How about no? How about that's not what's going to happen? So sometimes you can pivot from a place of hopelessness or despair or sadness or grief into anger. If you have to be in the energy of being angry about it, then be in the energy of being angry about it. But as long as you're stepping into a more empowered state of being rather than a place of hopelessness, you're moving up the vibrational scale. So I do find myself sometimes being very sad about these things and confused and in despair about how the hell ghetto this place is. You know what I mean? And how God have them down here acting a whole fool, not doing what they were designed to do down here. And instead of going from that place and stepping into, well, if you think I'm going to cower in my house and be scared to step out onto this earth that is my earth, you got another thing coming. You know what I mean? So however you have to move up that vibrational scale, from despair or hopelessness or fear, even if it is up to anger, then you do that. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's one of the things that I notice in myself is like, I'll spend a couple days being kind of like sad about it and confused by it. And then the next, it'll take a couple days to get through, to process those feelings. And it's okay. It's okay to be in that space, especially if you're an empath. If you feel things deeply, you know what I mean? Those of us who feel things, some of us don't. It's okay if you don't feel things deeply. If you look at that story on the television and you can't see it being your child or your nephew or your niece, count yourself as lucky that you don't feel things deeply. But for those of us who feel things deeply and who can almost imagine yourself in that situation, you really have to take the time to process. You really have to take the time to process that grief. It's not something that you can just turn off the TV and pretend it's a movie that you just saw. And quiet as it's kept, I don't even watch movies like that because I don't like that energy, period. Period. I don't even watch movies that are like that, or Netflix series of serial killers and things like that. I don't watch none of that because I just don't like that. I absorb too much of that energy. And so if you're an empath, you're not okay right now, and that's okay. And sometimes you do have to grieve for strangers. You know what I mean? You do have to grieve for mothers and teachers and other families that you would never in life cross paths with, but just because you're connected in the humanity of love and family and having children, you feel what they feel. You know what I mean? So it is okay to be upset, to take time to grieve and to light a candle or to, say a prayer or whatever you need to do to help yourself heal from the trauma that we've been looking at on TV. I feel like you go back to work after these things and everybody's just talking about this stupid ass work, these stupid projects that are so inconsequential. And everybody is pretending like the 35th mass killing that we just witnessed on the news we're not witnessing it, and we just have to like continue to do whatever work or project that we're supposed to be doing and pretending like everything is a-okay. I see you guys in the comments. I appreciate you being here tonight. What's up, Ferd? What's up, Jared? I see you, Keith, in the building, right? I see you. Rubes is still here and Katie in the building. I appreciate you guys being here, catching us live. And if you're a part of Replay Gang, drop this emoji in the chat as we get into our rant tonight of how to keep your head and your heart in the game, even through challenging times like we've seen for the past couple of weeks here in the United States. Ferd, I know you're in South Africa. I don't really know what's going on in South Africa right now, but hopefully it's a little bit more peaceful than it is here over in the States. I see Rachel in the building. Hey, boo, hey. Thanks for finally making your first live. I appreciate y'all being here with us. Yeah. So, okay, I see Keith in the building. I see Rachel in the building. Oh, Lord, it's not letting me click her. There we go. Hey, Rachel, what's good, sis? Yeah. So, first things, oh, I see JB in the building. Good morning. Shanghai in the building. We always have our international watchers in the building watching from Shanghai in China. JB, thanks for joining us, sis. So appreciate you being here. You guys know we have a lot of international subbies who catch us on the regular. JB's in here from Shanghai, and Ferd is in here from South Africa. Ferd is one of our regulars. Appreciate you being here, international watchers. Whether you're catching us live or whether you're catching us on the Saturday after our live. So good to see you guys in the building. Yeah. So guys, you guys can see from the topic, the subject line on the topic on the video tonight, keeping your head and heart in the game, even in hard times. This week, as I said to you guys, has been a really, really rough one for me as somebody who feels deeply. It was very challenging for me to pretend that everything was okay and everything was going well this week. It wasn't for me. And so I did have to take a couple of days just to be sad. And to be honest with you, I'm not like my chipper self. This is Memorial Day weekend here. This is a bank holiday for us here in the States, and I have days off. So normally I would be like, all right, what we doing? What we going? What we doing? What we going? You know, and all of that. But right now I'm just like, let me get my hair done. You know what I mean? Let me do some self-care. Let me make myself feel good. And I think that's the second thing that we can look at when we're really trying to, you know, keep our head and our heart in the game, even through dark times. The first one is to kind of recognize what you have control over and what you don't have control over. The second one is to kind of say, okay, even if I can move from despair and grief to anger, which is at least a little bit of a more empowered state, I will do that. Whatever I can do to move myself up the vibrational scale emotionally as I try to process this trauma and this grief that we are witnessing regularly here in the United States, and we are gaslit into thinking that this is normal and that this is okay and that this is still the best country on earth, even though massacres by men happen on the gun-wielding men happen on the regular here, leaving the women and children unprotected. And so we're gaslit into thinking that's normal and that this is still American exceptionalism, when this is more like American demonic possession. But, you know, as we try to process, the third thing I think we can do, you know, is self-care. I think if you can still find a way to nourish your body, get enough rest, get a workout in, that has been incredibly helpful for me. I work out pretty heavy, but perhaps it's more like going for a walk, or being out in nature, or going to the water, going to the beach, going to the lake, going to a waterfall. Somehow reconnect with nature, somehow get your body moving. You know, maybe it's even something as luxurious as going for a massage, or getting your hair, your nails done, you know, getting a facial, something like that, where you can pour into yourself. That's another way that you can keep your head and your heart in the game, even through dark and challenging times is remember your self-care. Remember to feed yourself with nourishing foods, not just junk food, because junk food has a way of not making you feel so good in your body. So you know what I mean? As healthy a food as you can muster to do, even through dark times, some physical activity, enough sleep, and enough hydration. I can't say this enough. Water is essential to just regular functioning of your body. And also when you're in the midst of manifesting and trying to even elevate your emotional state, water will help you do that. And if you do not have enough water in your system, if you are not well hydrated, your manifestations will not come in, your mood will not lift, it will not elevate. So you have to remember that you have to drink enough liquids, hydration, to be able to even elevate your mood, to be able to even keep your head and your heart in the game as we move through these times, you know, as you are trying to manifest. So that's, I think, self-care, I think, is another big thing that you can focus on when you're trying to just deal with the day-to-day realities of life sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. Ferd was a Ferd is a law enforcement officer in South Africa, and so he's dealt firsthand with a lot of these kind of darker situations. And so, you know, I know he knows how to deal with these situations. And as I understand it, Ferd keeps close to his spiritual grounding, and is a God fearing man. And so I think that helps him sometimes when it has to deal with these kind of uh, dark and tumultuous situations. Yeah. 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 So if you're just joining us, we're talking about how to keep your head and your heart in the game, even through dark times. What you can do to, you know, get through it and not always pretend like everything is amazing, but like take things as they come and figure out how you can stabilize yourself in the midst of some of these dark times. Yeah. Yeah. Ferd is saying there is that we struggle with gender-based violence in South Africa, and we have a lot of murders. As for me, it was my relationship with God that helped me to leave the past behind. Yeah, gender-based violence, femicide. We have that a lot in the United States. We have that a lot where I'm from in South Florida as well, where you have to be very, very careful about domestic violence, about dating, about how you tell a man that you're not really interested in him, because there is a tendency for men to think it's okay to just murder women if they don't want to be in a relationship with them anymore. And that's not very far away from what we're seeing with the man running into the supermarket and killing everybody, and a man running into a schoolyard and killing everybody. So, again, as I said at the top of this broadcast, I think the men in our society should probably have a really strong look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves what the is wrong with them. So, also, as I said at the top of the broadcast, I'm not very politically correct tonight, because another thing is when you get at the end of your rope, the rose-colored glasses and the being politically correct is not always the easiest. So tonight, I might say what I really feel like saying, and so hopefully you guys understand. Yeah. So, okay. So keeping your head and your heart in the game, even in hard times. I did not do notes for tonight's live, guys. I just kind of like popped on and just am talking kind of a little bit off the cuff and seeing, you know, what comes up. What else? What else do I want to talk about? What else do you guys want to talk about? Hmm. I think I think in going a little bit back to the being angry thing, sometimes it gets to the point where you can't, where you don't, where it's a little bit like you can't let somebody's behavior, you have to understand that you can't let fear of death stop you from doing what you came here to do. And I think one of the things that a lot of these people that decide to go around and murder and do these mass killings is that they feed off of the fear and the energy of fear that they drum up when they behave in that certain way. And one of the things that you have to be very cognizant of is like, are you feeding into that fear? Now, at the beginning, you might be shocked and appalled by the behavior. And yeah, you're going to be scared. Of course, you're going to be scared thinking, who's the next psychopath? Who's the next copycat psychopath that's going to be doing something like that? And if it can happen over there, it definitely can happen over here, especially when you're seeing it for the 100th time in the last decade, right? And when it's the first time, you're like, oh my God, that psychopath. But when you notice that, oh, this happens 15 times a year, when are the odds that it's going to happen in my neck of the woods? You start to realize that it's a very high possibility. And so, of course, you can be in the energy of fear. But I think one of the things when you are trying to pull yourself back from that and you're trying to keep your head in the heart in the game, you have to recognize where you're coming from. Are you operating from a place of fear for a prolonged period of time? Of course, for a week after whatever these incidents happen, whether you see it on TV or whether it's something that actually happens in your life, you default into this place of fear and tension and scaredness. But one of the things that you can kind of do is pay attention every morning when you wake up, pay attention to the where you're coming from, the vibrational stance from where you're coming, because that is going to be the thing that dictates how your life unfolds moving forward. So you want to be very mindful to not stay in that energy for a prolonged period of time, and do what is necessary, whatever steps you can think of to do to pull yourself out of that space and continue on with life. Because I posted on my Instagram today, there's nothing promised in this life but death. And so a lot of times when you see these monsters do what they're doing, they're drumming up the fear of death. But when you realize that death is inevitable, you can pivot your mind back into, okay, let me do what I came here to do. And that, one monkey don't stop no show. That one person is not going to stop me from doing what God sent me to do, what my higher self sent me to do, what I came on this earth to do. You're not here by an accident. You're here to do something. You're here to affect someone. Even if you're not here to do something, yourself, or to build something or to invent something, you're here to impact somebody's life. You know what I mean? And so as long as you can bring your focus back to what you're here to do, who you're here to impact and influence in a positive way, you end up defeating what those monsters' purpose was. You know what I mean? What those killers' purpose was. Their purpose is not stronger than yours. Their purpose is not stronger than mine. They're not going to stop me from doing what I came here to do, what I was designed to do, to the people that I was here to affect, the people that I was here to love, the inventions that I was here to create, the experiences that I was here to have. You're not going to shock me and scare me out of living my life to the fullest for the short period of time that I'm here, even if you feel like you're going to truncate my time here. You know what I mean? Even if you have to get into that kind of vibration of like, you don't stop me from doing what I came here to do. You could have 15 guns. You could have 200 bullets. It might not even be a killer like that. You could be somebody who want to curse me out, road rage or something like you. You don't stop this show. Your bad mood doesn't stop this show. You can't affect, you know what I mean? So even if you have to get into a mindset like that, even if that's helpful to let you keep your head and your mind in the game and know that, my ultimate goal here is to keep myself as happy as I can for the longest period of time that I can, so I can serve my purpose to the highest, you know what I mean? And so long as you're working to get yourself back into that empowered, loving, happy, excited, thrilled, energetic stance, then you're on the right path. And so it's like whatever you need to do to get your heart back into that place of loving and not being closed down and afraid, and get your head back into the place of clarity and strength and whatever other stable position that you can be in. That's what you need to do to overcome dark times, and to hold your head until the clouds lift and the sun come out again. Because if one thing's going to happen, Bad times don't last always. Neither do good times, quiet as is kept. Neither do good times, quiet as is kept. But but uh but bad times don't last always. So if even if you hold on to that little glimmer, that can help the situation as yet. Further saying one of the biggest problems in all of society is absent fathers. I think the role of the father and the men in society has been um, twisted and demented and eroded into something that is unrecognizable. I don't feel like a lot of men truly know their purpose and their worth and their value. So because they don't know the enlightened part of that, the value, they go into the demented, dark, absent, hiding, wounding, villain type of energy. And so that's something that I feel like we really need to talk about. Therapy. I don't know I don't know, but I feel like we have an issue with the men in society. And to be honest, with black people, we talk about it a lot about black men, but when you really look at it, it's not just a black man issue. When you really look at it, it's a white man issue. It's an Asian man issue. It's an Indian man issue. It's an African man issue. You know what I mean? It's there's an issue when it comes to violence in our societies and the women and the children being subjected to trauma and abuse at the hands of men. And that's not to point fingers, that's just to look at the evidence that's being presented to us so that we can actually come up with solutions that are viable to make men in the society feel more valued and truly be valuable to the society and to really know their role instead of being taken into this darkness and behaving in a way that is a a villain to society. So not really sure what's going on there, but I think it's an issue that we really need to dissect. What else are you guys saying in the comments here? I know I'm on a little bit of a issue here. Keith is saying there will be more tragedies and rituals this summer, long hot summer. I'm not sure where you got that from, but that's what Keith is saying. So, I guess we'll mark your words then, Keith, huh? Yeah. All right, so let me think. What else do we want to talk about? I think one thing that I have to realize as somebody who's kind of empathetic, and I read about this. Actually, Rachel, who's in here tonight, sent me something on human design to read. It's like your chart, your astrology chart. If you're ever into looking at your chart and looking at your astrology, it's a very kind of nebulous, ethereal kind of way. It's spirituality. So if you're into it, you're into it. If you're not, you're not. But this week we were looking at human design in your chart. And this is based on where you were born, when you were born, and what date you were born. And it's plotted and it gives you some characteristics that should explain who you are. And one of the characteristics that it spoke about for me was this non-emotional characteristic. And this non-emotional characteristic just kind of dictates that your internal state as somebody who's characterized as non-emotional is usually very peaceful. And so any little ripple, when you get into contact with somebody whose state is usually characterized as emotional, meaning that their emotions can go up and down at a whim just from their internal state. Whenever you get into close proximity or closeness to somebody like that, it can cause ripples. It can really impact the non-emotional person. So what would be to them, the emotional person, a 2 in terms of traumatic on a scale from 1 to 10, or in terms of disturbing on a scale from 1 to 10, would be a 9 to the person who's usually peaceful. So I hope that makes sense. That's one of the things that I thought was really, really interesting this week, is that I have to be careful not to look at things and be so overcome and so overwhelmed by them, and, make something that on a scale from 1 to 10 is like a 2 to the people who are actually living it. But to me, who usually lives in this very peaceful, calm, serene state, when their 2 gets introduced into my world, it feels like a 10. And I really resonated with that explanation of emotional versus non-emotional when we were talking about human design, because I feel like that's how I feel. I feel like, whoa, how is this impacting me so deeply? And other people can like walk around like it's all good, like, oh, it happens every day, or oh no, I didn't know any, I didn't hear anything on the news, or oh my gosh, like what's going on? You know, and I'm just like, what, are you nuts? They just kill all these people. Like, are you not paying attention? You know? And so I think it has to do with that characteristic of like being emotional versus non-emotional, and things, you know, that impact other people as a level of 2 feels like a 10 to somebody who is typically emotional and like governs themselves on this really placid, serene lake. You know what I mean? And so I thought that was interesting this week to look at, and I really felt like, oh, that's me. That's me, because right now I'm feeling like this is a 10 and everybody else is like, oh, this is a 2, and you know, let's continue on doing this project. And I'm like, this project, are you kidding me? Like, I'm trying to figure out how these people don't burn down the police precinct because, because they had 6 police. Like, I just, I'm my emotions can be like very, very high end. So that was an interesting understanding of the characteristics of somebody who's emotional versus non-emotional that we looked at this week. If you guys are in the building, chime in the comments. Let me know what you were thinking about. How was this week for you? Drop your flag in where you're watching from, and let me know what you are sipping on and what you think of tonight's topic. Tonight I'm sipping on, it's a little splash. Since it's Memorial Day weekend, we're going into a long weekend. It's a little itty bitty splash of bourbon and some sweet tea. You guys know last week I was on my H2O, lubricating the throat chakra. And the week before that I was on my Southern Belle thing, bourbon and sweet tea. We're back on the bourbon and sweet tea, except it's just a little bit of splash. It's just a cap full of bourbon, nothing too much as we ease into Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, trying to lift the spirits. This week has been a really heavy week for me. That's why we're talking about keeping your head and heart in the game, even in hard times, is a topic that you guys selected over on Instagram and on YouTube. And just we're talking about it this week, and seeing how we can, keep focused even when the enemy, quote unquote, whoever that is, tries to derail you. You know what I mean? Tries to derail all of us, quiet as it's kept. Mm-hmm. Cheers. Clink, 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 clink. Yes. So, what else? What else? Okay. So, keeping your head and heart in the game, even in hard times. What else do we want to talk about as it relates to that? I think the self-care, knowing what you can control, just being aware that your emotions might definitely be more heightened than necessary. And I think also, I think the other thing that I think is very helpful, even through dark times, is doubling down on your love, doubling down on your happiness, doubling down on the good times, doubling down on the things that make you happy. Like really making an effort to find those things and to focus on those things, to express your love to your family and to your friends, and to have a good time. I think the best thing you can do is not to play into the heaviness and the fear and the darkness that might be trying to infiltrate your space and your life and your awareness. You can be very focused and very intentional and, very intentional on making levity, being light, being happy, regardless of any external circumstance. External circumstances don't necessarily have to govern your internal state. And as long as you're clear about that, you can do a good job of keeping your head and your heart in the game, even through dark times. What does that look like? That looks like, look, we're on to a long weekend. We are going to have fun this weekend. We're not going to sit around and mope around and be sad. We're going to jump up out of bed in the morning time. We're going to get our little meditation in, or we're going to get a little walk in, or we're going to take a cold shower, or we're going to have a good breakfast, or we're going to get that cup of Starbucks, or whatever it is that makes us feel the absolute best in the morning time. We're going to call our friends. We're going to call our family. We're going to go over to our neighbor's house. We're going to have a good dinner. We're going to commune with our family. We are going to be in the essence of love and excitement and thrill and safety and comfort, even if we have to fake it for the first 30 minutes until the momentum and the ball gets going. Whatever you have to be determined to be in your highest, happiest, funnest, loving state is the best thing that you can do to stand firm against anything that seems to be trying to get you to be fearful or scared or unhappy, or, whatever these dark, forces are trying to be in your life. You know what I mean? So it is very intentional, inspired way of moving towards something that is bringing the joy, the life, the thrill, the happiness into your life and into your space, as we wait for the dark times to pass. You know what I mean? I think that's another good way of keeping your head and your heart in the game. Be very intentional about it. Be intentional about not letting anything external to you govern your internal state for a long time. Again, grace, right? You can give yourself grace. You can be upset for a day. You know what I mean? You can be upset for a day. You can be upset for a few days. You could have a glass of wine. You know what I mean? But don't let it go on for a long, extended amount of time. You know what I mean? You don't have to let it go on for a long, extended amount of time. You know what I mean? You want to be very, intentional about moving through it and moving past it and not letting the enemy win. Whatever enemy that is, whether it's your bad mind cousin or your bad mind family and friends, or it's the hater next door, or if it's your hating ass boss, whomever it is trying to be a bearer of negative energy in your life or negative circumstance, you can be a pillar of determination in the opposite direction. You know what I mean? You give yourself grace, whatever they annoy you for an hour, but make sure you're aware that that was the annoyance and move through it. Let go what you need to let go of and move through it. You know what I mean? And decide that I am the master of my fate, captain of my soul. I am the designer of this experience. And while you may have got me for 30 minutes, or you may have got me for an hour, or you may have got me for 2 days, but after that, I decide how I feel. I decide that I want to be happy, that I want to be loving, that I want to be safe, that my life is to be of happiness and bliss. You know what I mean? And that you don't get to decide anything, even if you're a gun-wielding psychopath. You know what I mean? It's still my decision on how I respond and how I react. Rubes is saying, reaching for the more blissful moments despite the fear. That is that is certainly present, most certainly present, right? Presence. That's a really, really good point. Presence. You know what I mean? At this very moment, are you safe? Are you secure? Are you in your home, or are you with friends? Are you happy? Do you have food to eat, water to drink, little something, little libation to wet your whistle, keeping that throat chakra lubricated? In this very moment, are you safe? Are you okay? Are you happy? Can you make yourself happy? And most likely the answer is yes. So that is another way to keep your head and your heart in your game. Be very present to your personal direct circumstance right now, and not be so much in your head or in your emotions of what happened last week or what happened this morning or what will happen in the future. At this present moment, everything is A-okay. And while you might not be in the best mood, you can use that A-okayness in this present moment as your launching pad, as your first step into the next moment being even happier than this moment. You know what I mean? So at this present moment, we're all okay. We are okay. And it is not, so much of gaslighting and pretending like we're not going through a traumatic experience. It is acknowledging that the experience may be traumatic, or it may be dark, or it may be hard. But at this present moment, you have breath in your lungs. You know what I mean? You are safe, you're okay, you are whole, and you can bring yourself back into clarity and bring yourself back into love from that, just that one moment of, I am okay. We are okay in this moment. Really, really good way, presence of mind. And knowing that this moment is the only true moment. How to keep your head and your heart in the game, even through dark times. What are you guys saying? I love that message, Rubes. Thank you for that. Right. JB saying it's not that it hasn't hit some deeply, but I think with many things in life, we need to respond, not react. Right. So it's saying that, I think JB is saying that sometimes when people have a tendency to react when there is an emotional response or some sort of emotional trigger or some sort of trauma, and that she's saying that it's better to respond. So there's a thoughtfulness to that response, right? As opposed to react, which is not much thoughtfulness, and it's just kind of like reacting without any strategy or clarity to what you're responding to. I feel that. I feel that, JB. Good night, Ferd. Thanks for joining us. It's the love in the comments. It's the love in the comments from the collective for me. I appreciate y'all so much for being here. Yeah, so okay, so what else can we talk about as it relates to keeping your head and your heart in the game even in hard times? This too shall pass. This too shall pass. Even, even earlier I said it's not about gaslighting. It's not about pretending that it's not happening. It is happening, and you can always reach to the help of a professional. This is not something that you necessarily have to deal with on your own, and it's not foolish to feel that issue for somebody else. A lot of times people think, oh my gosh, do I need therapy? I'm so sad for those people. But you have to understand there's a compounding effect. There's a compounding effect here. This is not just one circumstance that we're dealing with. We're coming out of a pandemic where they say 1 million people have died. Our life has turned on its head over the last 2.5 years. We're still dealing with the pandemic. It's just not on the 24-hour news cycle. The market is tanking right now. If you have any money in the market, everybody who has money in the market is watching it closely. You know what I mean? We're on the brink of a recession. Gas prices is out the wazoo. There's a war over there in them people's country over there by Russia and them people them. You know what I mean? You have the baby formula. Now they're stripping the food to feed the nutrients of the children from the shelves. You know what I mean? Now you have this shoot 'em up, killing up. We thought we was gonna be over this shoot 'em up, kill 'em up, and we right back into it. So on the other side of the pandemic, on the other side of 1 million Americans being dead from the pandemic, we're back into the shoot 'em up, kill 'em up. We have the race issues. You know what I mean? Where we're still having to deal with police brutality. We're still having to bring with white supremacist delusion. You know what I mean? It's not just, you might think, dang, why am I so sad about this one circumstance? You have to realize that there's a multitude of circumstances happening right now. And they've been happening. This is not a short-term, one-time out of the blue thing. Columbine happened in 1999. There's not been a year since 1999 that there hasn't been a mass shooting at somebody's school or some place since about 1999. This is 2022. Of course, we're all traumatized. And of course, we're all sitting here thinking about how the heck do we make this? How do we continue? What do we do? You know what I mean? What do we do? Continue to try to put our hands, our faith and our livelihood in the hands of some politician hyena who are more concerned with pandering to their base, whether on the right or the left, than actually solving the issues. I want to see the data. as much spying as they're doing on all of our devices, on all of the internet and the technology that they have, all the cookies, all the tracking, all the tracing that they do, they should be able to predict before the idiot buys the killing machine AR-15, whatever the hell. They should be able to predict that the idiot is going to try to buy one of those guns just based on all the tracking that they're doing, all the TikToking that everybody's doing. You mean to tell me they can't predict that? Get the data. Forget the politics. I want to see the data. If we start with the data, maybe we started from someplace. You know what I mean? So again, going back and forth between ranting on the issue and figuring out how we can keep our head and our heart in the game as we even as we go through dark times. My goodness. So anyway, guys, I think that's all I have for tonight. It's been a tough week for me, but I told you guys, I promised each and every Friday night, show my face. This is week 22. Consistency each and every Friday night, 7 p.m. Showing my face, connecting with the collective, those who are catching us live and those who are part of the replay gang. Replay gang is strong over here. Drop this emoji in the chat and let me know your thoughts on tonight's live. Whether you're catching us in the feed live tonight or if you're part of the replay gang. What else do we want to talk about tonight? We talked about knowing what we have control over and what we don't have control over. Self-care as much as you can as you try to keep your head and your heart in the game. Not being overrun by emotions, and somebody else's 2 might be a 10 on your scale, and recognizing that. You know, being sad from some moment, but then deciding that sadness is not your constant state and that no external circumstance can govern my internal state. And it's so important to know your internal state because your internal state is the first indication of what you are going to be manifesting, what you're going to be bringing forth and creating in this life, and also what you are going to be attracting. So it's very important to know your external state and be the captain of your fate, master of your soul as it relates to how you feel day to day, so that you are in control, not some psychopath, not some hater, not some chatterbox, not whoever is trying to bring darkness or be the perpetrator of darkness in your life, even if it's your own shadow. You know, be aware of your feelings and constantly choose the next best feeling thought, even if it's going from sadness and despair to anger, even if it's going from anger to determination, even if it's going from determination to focus, even if it goes from focus to inspired action. You know what I mean? Do what you need to do. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're getting enough rest, eating the right foods, and getting out into nature. There is nothing better than getting a quick walk in, taking a few deep breaths, seeing the sun rise or the sunset, going out by the water. All of that really, really helps to ground and bring yourself back to calmness and wholeness, even in the midst of trying, turbulent times. You know what I mean? Connecting with nature is one of my favorite things to do. Going on a run, getting my heart beating, my blood pumping, you know what I mean? Getting the body back, getting the momentum and the metabolism back in the body really helps as well, to keep the mind focused and sharp and your heart back into that loving state. Yeah. I think the last thing I want to talk about as it relates to keeping your head and your heart in the game, even in dark times, is not making a permanent decision based on temporary feelings. I feel like when you're younger in life, particularly a lot of times a teenager, sometimes even when you're into early adulthood, you can get so wrapped up in your emotions, your sadness, your grief, your traumas, whatever darkness that you feel like is insatiable, like you feel like it's all consuming, you feel like there's no way out. And people can very easily slip into making permanent decisions when they're in that state of darkness, when it's only a temporary situation. So you have to be very, very mindful of how do I make sure I'm making decisions, how do I make sure I'm not making decisions that are permanent, based on a temporary state of sadness or darkness or despair. Very important not to make permanent decisions based on temporary circumstances. Yeah. You guys know I put all of these lives in a playlist called Friday Night Kickback here on my channel on YouTube. So if ever you miss one of the Friday Night Lives, be sure to check the playlist and catch up on the topics that you think seem interesting. We have a whole bunch of gems. You know, gems is heavy around here as we learn from the collective wisdom of the Itzkels community. And so make sure you're staying up, you're tuned in to all of our lives. If you are a podcaster, if you like to listen to these videos as a podcast, please know that we are working on standing up a podcast that is going to accompany these lives that we do each and every Friday. If you're following me on TikTok, you can see behind the scenes as we try to get the studio all set up. It's only half set up, as you can see. But you know, every week is just going to get a little better and a little better as we continue on. So ride with me, journey with the collective as we continue on with these Friday Night Kickbacks. Podcasts are coming. Guests and dial-in show, that's coming too. Production will be stepped up, all of that. And next week we are going to be in a better mood. We're not going to let anything keep us down. We're going to move through these dark times with our head up, our mind clear, our heart strong, courage, momentum, faith, and understanding that, you know, I am the master of my fate, the captain of my soul, and no boogeyman, even with an AR-15, don't stop no show. The show must go on. I do these videos so you guys know you're not out here alone in this sometimes crazy, living, loving, dating world. If this is your first time here, I'd love to have you subscribe, like the video, smash that like button. I saw we only got a few likes tonight. Do me a favor, smash the like button. Show your girl some love. It's a free and easy way to support the channel, to support the content. And yeah, I'd so appreciate it. So if it's your first time here, love to have you subscribe, smash that like button. And if you are a returning viewer, an oldie but a goodie, good looking out. This week I was looking back through some of my videos and I was seeing that some of y'all have been riding with us since 2017, since 2018. I could see you in the comments from the old videos and things like that. So it's all love. It is all love. Appreciate you guys. DB's not here tonight, but he's one of the main ones. Santhia, she's one of the main ones. Been here since like 2017. So the love is definitely here with you guys. I'll catch you guys as a part of the replay gang. And yeah, have an amazing Memorial Day weekend. And I'll see you guys next week, 7 p.m. Friday night, for week number 23. It's the consistency for me. All right, guys. Bye.